Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's section. I really want to appreciate some of you that have already watched the last pre-recorded lectures on the Introduction to Organizational Management, and the feedback that have come through has really been pleasing. I really want to thank you for some of you that have got in touch and said that you really find it useful, and for some of you that haven't even go back to watch that pre-recorded lectures, I want to encourage you to do so because it lays the foundations to every series that we're going to be looking at in the course of the academic year. And in the last lecture, we looked at Introduction to Organizational Management. We're looking at managing organizations, some of the challenges, silent challenges confronting managers today. Top managers, managers at the top echelons of organizations, managers in small, managers in medium and large organizations. We'll look at some of those challenges that confront managers. In today's lectures, we're looking at something completely different. We're looking at planning and goal setting. Goal setting and planning are so essential, they're so integral to everything that we do as humans on a daily basis. And we're looking at this in the context of organizations. We're looking at it in the context of managing organizations. So why do planning and goal settings matters and how do they matters? We'll be looking at the interrelationship. We'll be looking at the connections between planning and goal setting for organizations and the implication they present for managers. And how managers can obviously leverage on planning and goal settings to manage organizations. So that is what we're going to be looking at today, and I just want you to follow me as I progress with the lecture. So today, without much ado, so let me just quickly a bit of background and just introduce you to some of the things. So when you hear the word goal settings, when you hear the word goal settings and plan, some of the things that comes to mind within organizations, you see the word like success and achievement. You see the word like time. You see the word like relating to even intelligence and other things. But in the course of this lectures, I'm going to unpack different aspects of goals. We're going to unpack different aspects of plannings as well. So let's look at, okay, what is the learning outcome for today? Without much ado, so the learning outcome for today. So what I wanted to get at the end of this recorded lectures, I wanted to be able to understand what goals are and what plans actually means, and look at the and understand their relationship. And haven't done that, so we're going to look at what is the essence of planning, what's the essence of goal settings, why do we plan as human, why do organizations plan, why do managers plan. We'll be looking at that, why do managers set goals, and as well as we try to understand and try to comprehend some of the criticism that is leveled against planning. So we will look at that. We will look at um, maybe perhaps appreciate the need for effective planning in today's dynamic organization. So we will see, even in the previous lectures, we'll look at some organizations, what makes effective managers, and how effective managers differ from ineffective managers. And at the heart of that is the issue of plans. And we see the implication for effective plan in with the current unfolding dynamic natures of the pandemic with COVID-19 that is affecting different organizations, create a different dynamic for organizations and managers in the way that they operate. So let's go and look at what we're looking at. But before I continue the presentations, I want you to sit back and just relax and just take a moment. Pick up a pen, get a pen, get a paper, and just let us do a simple exercise together. Right, so let's do a simple exercise. Every time I have these lectures about plans and goal settings, I usually do this exercise, and I want you to just take a moment before you proceed to the next. Don't skip before you proceed to the next uh, aspect of the lectures. Let's do this exercise. Take a cup of coffee and take your pen, and let's do it together. So the exercise is about. So this is a time. It's like a time to plan, right? Let's do the plan. Let's do a short plan. Right. Uh, so we're going to set a goal. So I want you to write four things that you would like to achieve. So think about it. Write four things you would like to achieve, just four, not more than four things you would like to achieve. And then once you've done that, the next thing I want you to do is to look at the items on your list. Once you look at the items, look at those four items and give a number ranging from 1, 3, 5, and 10. So look at the four items on your list and give a number either 1, 3, 5, and 10. 1 being 1 year, 3 being 3 years, 5 being 5 years, and 10 being 10 years. So once you've done that, I want you to then look at this. So once you give each item a number, and then what do you think? The question is, what do you think it might take you to achieve that goal and why? So what you've done is you set a goals. you put up a number of time or years it's going to take you to achieve those particular goals, and then you're trying to think about what it might take you to achieve that goals and why. So that is the exercise. So I want you to reflect on that exercise in the course of the lectures, and then you start to appreciate why planning and goal settings actually matters for managers and organizations, and for leaders, for executive or top echelons of organizations. So we're going to look at these other aspects. But remember, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Is a wishful thinking. If you have a goal without a plan, is a wishful thinking. So that's something to remember. And one of the things that you will absolutely uh, come across is that within organizations, you hear the word smart, right? They talk about the fact that your your goals needs to be very specific, needs to be measurable, and at the same time, it needs to be achievable and realistic as well. It needs to be timely. So your goals needs to be specific. Think about that before I continue the lecture. It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be achievable. It needs to be realistic. There's no point setting a goals that is not realistic. Remember, a goal is different from a vision. It's different from expectation. So it's different. So we're going to look at that. It needs to be timely. It needs to be time bound. So we're going to look at that. And then, of course, in the course of the lectures, I'll be wrapping up the implication of what they mean for managers, what they mean for business leader. And one of the things that obviously I've often seen is that I came across this, and I thought I should share it with you. I've seen that there's a piece of research that was done a couple of years ago, alluding to the fact that about 83% people with no goal. There are 83% of people that doesn't have a goal, and the fact that we have 14% people that have goals in their head are 10 times more likely to be successful. And if you have about 3% of people with written goals and plans, they are 30 times more likely to be successful. It may be something to try and practice and reflect on and say, listen, can this actually work? Can this work? Can I, instead of having the goals in my head, can I put it down? Can I write it and put it down? I am a very strong advocate of vision. I'm a very strong advocate of, I believe in vision writing. Write the visions, make it plain, and then you try to run with that vision, try to run with that goals. So let's see what goals mean in the course of our lectures for today. So why does goals why does it matter? Why does it really matter that we look at goals? Why do we need to set goals within the organization? Why do managers need to set goals? So there are four areas you may want to look at this. And if you look at the recommended book by Richard Daft and colleague Alan Benson, so there are four areas I would recommend you go back to that book on management. So one of the things that why goals actually goes, it energizes, it gives that energy, and it provides a very clear directions. It gives you the directions, you know where you're going, you know where you're heading, and it provides a form. It serves as a form of challenge to you, to your colleagues at work, to get you to think about what you're trying to achieve. So it gives that challenge, and it allows you to be able to think outside the box, to look at what you have and how best you can make use of it. So goal setting is in that sense is a source of motivation, is a source of motivation for many managers, for many organizations, and that's why it is very crystal that very important that we also try to put it in a context and try to appreciate what it means for organizations and how organizations should actually go about doing so. So what is goal? So a goal is normally a desire feature state that the organization attempt to realize. So a goal is a desire feature state that the organization is trying to realize, is trying to achieve, is trying to get there. And of course, a plan is a blueprint. A plan, the way I see it, is a blueprint. It specifies the resource allocation that the organization need, the schedules of activities and other actions that are necessary for attaining the goals that have been set. So let me explain again. So you have a blueprint. So a blueprint where written, specifying what are the resources that are needed, what are the activities that needs to be scheduled, what are the other necessary actions for attaining the goals that have been set within the organization. That's a plan. All right. We've tried to see here. We see goals. We see plan. And we're going to look at the purpose. What is the essence of goals? What's the essence of plan? Why do managers plan? Why do managers set goals? So we're going to look at it. And some there are a wide range of areas that within the literatures that have suggested different reasons for or different purpose for goals and plan. But I just want to highlight a few. One of it is the issue of legitimacy and mission statement. So if our legitimacy and mission statement, that is, it provide the mission statement is more like what the organization is aiming to the position the organization is aiming to get to, and it sets that clear direction to provide the legitimacy for the organization, and it becomes a source of motivation and commitment within the organization as well. And of course, we have issues relating to rationale for decision making. They become the basis for which managers make decision, because you can now understand why you're doing what you're doing. You can now understand the reason behind your behavior as a manager within that particular organization. Take for example, on a personal level, if you have a goal to make a first class, right, or you have a goal to make a distinction in a particular module, say for example, on my module, you have your goal is to make a distinction. Now what you do is that once you have that goals, you need to put up a plans in place on how you achieve that distinction, right? And one of the things you can do is start to maybe engage with the lectures, watch the pre-recorded lectures, attend the live sections, and as well as maybe start to think about your assignment early, and start to maybe possibly understand the questions and try to gather literature's material that you will need to do the assignment, and try to maybe ask questions and try to start with the draft. And obviously maybe you can seek feedback on the drafts. So these could be the plans that you put in place to make sure that you actually excel in the module. And so that becomes the goals becomes the rationale for the decision that you're now taking. And this happens at organization level. Managers, the goals within organizations and the plan becomes the source of their decisions. It becomes the rationale for why they do the things that they do. And of course, it also becomes a guide to action, and as well as resource allocation, and it becomes obviously issues relating to standard of performance. So these are critical area that organizational managers actually needs to be very find useful. So that's the thing. I talked earlier about goal settings being needed to be smart. We're going to look at that, the fact that it needs to be specific, the fact that it needs to be measurable, it needs to be attainable, and it needs to be relevant. It needs to be time bound. So these are really common, but these are some of the uh, reasons why goals and plan are really important. These are some of the reasons why they are important. Now, one of the things within management, within organizational management literature, one of the theories that you often many people usually cited is the theory of is the goal setting theory, or the theory of goal setting. And this theory proposed in the 60s was developed and refined by Edwin Locke. So in 1960s, this theory is based on the premise that a goal can become more specific through when you quantify it, or in a way that you make it to be measurable, such as you want to increase your productivities by 50%, or you want to increase your sales by 100%, or by trying to define certain tasks that needs to be completed. So that's the context that goals becomes more specific in that regard. And then therefore goal settings will now affect outcomes in four different ways. And one of it is the choice. It is the choice within the organization, the choice the managers make. So that is fundamental. You see also the issue of effort, persistence, and cognition. So I'm going to explain to you Locke's goal setting theory. So the basic premise is that um, it specify that goals needed to be specific and difficult goals. It emphasizes specific and difficult goals, and with which in a way kind of self-generated feedback leads to higher performance. So you have specific and difficult goals. So you need to have a specific and difficult goals with self-generated feedback that you're able to provide that you can generate feedback as a result. And that is the type of goals that leads to higher performance within organizations. And by difficult goals, what it means is that these are goals that focus and direct attention. So they are very specific, they are very focused. They focus and they direct your attentions on where you're going. And it provides the energizes the person, the managers to work much more harder towards attaining those goals because they seem to be difficult. Difficulties in a way kind of increases the persistence of the individual managers within the organization. And of course, it's trying to force people to be more specific and more effective, more efficient within the organizations. And the relations between goals and performance now, we try to depend on the goal commitment and also the task characteristics. So goal commitment in terms of the more public, the better. So makes your goal public and make it more simple. Or we're looking at it doesn't have to be complicated, and also the cultures of the organization. So the culture of the organizations, we are going to look at issues relating to cultures in the course of this particular module. Now, goal settings theory. One of there are four practical implications that you could look at. We could look at goals being served as a directive function. They can serve as the directive functions that direct the attention and effort towards goal relevant activities within the organization itself. I can help managers to really direct their effort and their energies in the things that truly matters. Because if you have a goal, you will be able to channel your energies, direct your energies in the things that truly matters that helps to achieve that particular goal. And as well as we've seen that also within this particular concept, we've seen that goals can provide that energies. Higher goals leads to greater effort than lower goals. In other words, there's no point setting a goal to achieve 20 to score 20 over 100 because you can easily achieve that without necessarily putting in higher effort. But if you're setting the goals to achieve maybe 80 or 90 or even 95, therefore you find the situations where you have to put in much more higher effort, greater effort in order to achieve that. So goals in a sense can within this particular theories, you can provide that energy for managers to be able to do the things that they needed to do. And of course, we're also looking at the fact that goals affect persistence of managers. So when allowed to control time spent on tasks, so what happened is it provide that resilience of the managers to be able to continue to be able to persevere, to be able to want to carry on because they know why they are doing what they are doing. They've set a goals, they stick to it, and that provide that sort of persistence of managers within the organizations. And another implication from the goal setting theory is the fact that it help affect the actions. So I've already alluded to that, the fact that it can lead to discovery or the use of task relevant knowledge and strategy. So once you have a goal, it helps to develop an appropriate strategies where you can concentrate your efforts, your energies on the things that the organization should be doing, on the things that managers needs to be doing. So these are really crucial aspects of goal setting. So far we've looked at plan, we've looked at goal settings, we've looked at plannings and goal settings. We've tried to understand within the context of goal setting theories. We've tried to understand why goal settings and plannings are truly important, and we've looked at some of the implications now. So let's just try to see what next. So when you look at planning, remember we looked at plan, we look at goals. Now when you're looking at planning, so planning is a primary managerial activities, and normally it involves defining the organizational goals. So organizations, managers within the organization needs to define what is the organizational goals are. what the organization goals are, and try to establish overall strategies into achieving these goals. And once managers have been able to do that, what happens next? Managers need to develop a plan to make sure that goals are being achieved. Remember the word SMART when you're setting up your goals. So managers needs to bear that in mind. So formal planning is very specific goals that is time bound with a specific time period. Remember the exercise I asked you to do, and when I start these particular lectures, so we'll look at do some exercise and write four items, four goals that you want to achieve, and of course I ask you to provide a number to it: 1, 3, 5, 10. So these are time bound. It's going to take me 1 year to achieve. It's going to take me 3 years to achieve that. It's going to take me 4 years to achieve that. So that happens within organizations. So and that written plans then needs to be shared with organization members. So this is what planning means in the context of goal settings that we are looking at. Now, what happened is that the planning process itself is very interesting. Is an interesting stuff within organizations. So normally every organizations will have what is called a vision and mission statements, right? So you have a vision and mission statement. Every organization do have that, or most organizations should have, or organizations are expected to have vision and mission statement. Visions, why does the organization exist? So what about that organization? Why do they exist? What is their essence? What is their purpose? What missions are they trying to fulfill? So organizations do have vision and mission statements, and you're looking at strategic plans. So after that, most organizations will have a strategic plans that help them to execute their vision, that help them to achieve their mission, right? And therefore, that can lead to that strategic plan may then be divided into operating plan. So operating plan, you could be looking at things around maybe 5 years operating plan, right? And therefore, 5 years operating plan can then be broken down into annual operating plan and budget. So most organizations will have that. Very good organizations will have that. Organizations that are well managed should have that. And of course, that can then help the organizations to put in what is called progress, achievement and progress reporting in place. And this could be quarterly, where organizations will have to review their plans, their operating plan, and see whether they're actually doing the things that they said they want to do. So these are really the aspects that organization managers needs to concentrate on. And if they are not, they then validate what they've done and try to revisit back to their strategic plan and see what can be amended. So a plan doesn't need to be static, it needs to be flexible. A plan doesn't need to be static, it needs to be flexible to accommodate the dynamic changing environment in which the organization is operating. So, and at the heart of it is the stakeholder of the organization. So, planning process kind of entail these particular modules or shape in many organizations. But remember, it doesn't have to be static. It's not a one-off thing. It needs to be iterative. It needs to be continuous. Now, so I haven't said that. So the question is, I kind of skip that. What do managers plan? So I try to get that across in terms of what do managers plan. So we look at formal plan. We look at now. I just want to simplify with this particular diagram to look at the for you to understand what goals and plan settings actually mean. Now, what that means is that assuming you are here, right, trying to navigate your way down to this point. So this is your destination. This is where you're going. This is where you are. You here. This is where you are. You're navigating towards this point, right? So what does that mean? So this point where you're going this is your goal. This is your objectives. This is what you want to get to, right? And so you need a plan. You need a plan or a strategy to get to where you want to go, right? So your operation, because you need a strategy on how to get to this point. So you put in some operational stuff here, so you could get to your destination here through sailing, right? So you could use another plan, maybe, oh, I would rather take a flight. I would rather do this. I would rather do that. So you could put up other plans in place, operational plans in place to achieve to get to your destinations, right? So this is planning and goal settings simplify on the screen for you. Now, just let's look at planning and performance. So we're looking at the relationship. So what is the relationship between planning and performance of organizations? Normally, formal planning within the literatures, in the academic literatures, formal planning is usually associated um, with higher profit and return on assets. So you have higher profit and return on assets and positive financial results. So there's that association between formal planning, higher profits and higher returns on assets, and also positive financial uh, results for the organization. And the other thing is the fact that the quality of planning and the implementation is what truly affect the performance. So there's, in other words, remember when I said if you have a goals without a plan, it's just a wishful thinking. So normally it's the quality of your planning and implementation that truly affect the performance of the organizations more than the extent of planning itself. Does that really make sense? So in other words, you're looking at the quality. So the quality of the planning itself and the implementation of the actual plans is what truly affect the performance of the organization rather than the extent to which you plan. In other words, it doesn't make any sense to plan for 10 years and only to execute it poorly. So in that doesn't really make sense. That's not going to positively affect the organization. And also the external business environment can reduce the impact of your planning on performance as well. So managers need to take that into considerations when doing formal planning. And formal planning as well sometimes needs to be used for several years before planning start to affect the performance of the organization as well. So these are something that these are something that you need to be aware of as well. So, but of course, if you look at in the previous slides when I emphasized the planning process, of course, I mentioned that it doesn't have to be static. It doesn't have to be one-off. So it needs to be iterative. So it needs that continuous cycle of feedback, constant feedback, in which you can adjust any sort of deviation. Now, so the element of planning, so you have the element of planning in terms of the goals itself. So you have a goals or objective and within the plans, and then of course the goals. I've told you about goals. I tried to illustrate it there in that void that image where you look at your desired outcome for individuals within the organization or group or the entire organization. So, and also the goals obviously also provide direction and evaluation of the performance criteria within the organization itself. And what other things that are also there in the formal plans is the plan itself. So the plan itself, these are documents. So these are written documents. It's allowing how goals are to be accomplished. So it will state clearly how the goals within your organizations will be achieved. And of course, it tries to describe how resources are to be allocated and establish activities will be put in place to make sure that these resources help to achieve the goals that have been set within the organization. So this for me is what truly matters for when you're looking at some of the elements of formal planning. Now, of course, you're looking at so how the managers plan. So I've mentioned the fact that you have that in the element of planning. So I've mentioned the work plans and goals. So I just try to remind you of that, and that relates to the issue of setting a very clear criteria in terms of how exactly organization need to achieve the goals that they're trying to achieve. So what that means is that you have different types of goals. And remember this. So you have different types of goals. So the number one aspect of the goals that you're looking at, it could be financial goals for the organizations. Many organizations need finances to be able to survive. Many organizations cannot survive without finance. So what happens is within financial goals you're looking at, they are often related to the expected maybe internal financial performance of the organization. So, and then of course you could have the strategic goals. So strategic goals are usually related to the performance of the organization itself relative to factors in the organization external environment, like competitors, like business rival, for example, within the marketplace. And you could have stated goals or re goals, right? By stated goals, broadly speaking, you're looking at the official statement of the organization, so intended for public consumption. So normally these are usually what organization put out there, so they will be stated, and they are meant for public consumption. And of course that's that may be irrelevant to its real goals. Actually, what goes on in the organization itself, it may be irrelevant to the organization. So within the organization itself, what is happening, and how managers actually navigate and manage and achieve those goals. So, of course, I've mentioned strategic goals. So, strategic goals normally these are where the organizations want to be in the future. So, if you say, for example, as an undergraduate, as a future managers, so where do you want to be in the next 5 years? What do you want to be in the next 10 years? Where do you want to be in the next 20 years? So, these are strategic goals. Strategic goals is what the organization wants to be in the future. Now, they usually pertain to the whole organization, so they kind of concerns the entire organization. They are not limited to just an individual unit or a functional unit or a departmental unit within the organization. No, strategic goals are goals that affect the whole organization as it is. And you can have strategic plans. So strategic plans is more of action steps that managers needs to take within the organization itself. I hope you follow in anyway. So and I hope that it's not been boring to you so far. So but again, the strategic plan is more like a blueprint that define the organizational activities and resource allocations within the organization itself, and they try to seek to position the organization in terms of its environment and cover an extended period of time. And what happened is you have tactical goals. So I've talked about strategic goals and strategic plans. So you could have tactical goals and tactical plans. So tactical goals, these are goals that define the outcome that major divisions and departments must achieve. So departmental level, these are not strategic goals that concern the entire organization. Tactical relates mostly to major divisions or department within the organization. These are goals that they define the outcomes which this department needs to achieve. So if does that make sense to you? So, and of course, tactical plans you're looking at, these are plans that are designed specifically to help execute strategic plans that have been put in place by the organizations. Especially it happens more like at the top echelon of the organizations, and then of course middle level managers needs to execute, put up the tactical plans in place to execute some of the strategy plans that have been put in place. So, but speed is of the essence in all of this. And you're going to see that because obviously because of the dynamic in the business environment, plans I've mentioned the fact that plan needs to be flexible, needs to be very lively, not redundant, not static. So something that is very iterative. So it needs to be very speedy in a way. So of course, we could then look at operational goals and plans. So remember, we look at strategic goals, we look at tactical goals and plans. So we're now looking at operational goals. Operational goals, what are they? So operational goals, these are something that are very specific and very measurable result expected from departments or working group or individual within the organization itself. So these are truly what they are in a sense. And of course, you can look at operational plan. So by operational plan, you're looking at organizations, how you lower um, the level that specify the action step to achieving the operational goals. They usually for a shorter period of time. They're not like strategic plans that cover extended period of time. Operational plans are for mainly like short period of time. And I talked about some of the concepts of effective goal settings already. I'm just trying to, this is just more like a recap. And then, of course, I'm going to wrap up the lectures around management by objectives and the implications and look at how they link. So I've mentioned the fact that your goals, the management goals, needs to be specific and measurable. I've mentioned the fact that it needs to cover key result areas. And as well, I've mentioned the fact that it could be challenging, but it needed to be realistic as well. And it needs to be for a specific period of time. Defined time frame is very important when it comes to that. And sometimes for goals to be effective, it needs to be linked to reward within the organization itself. Does that make sense? So these are some of the characteristics of effective goal settings within organization. So if we look at that, so to recap, so normally what is happening because of the dynamic business environment in which modern organizations operate in, you find that there's a clear contrast between traditional goal settings and emerging goal settings. Traditional goal settings usually happens in a way that is very broad, is set at the top of the organization. So goal settings activities are performed by the top echelon, senior executives, senior managers within the organizations. And then these goals are then broken down into sub goals for different functional areas of the organization for middle levels and lower level managers to execute. And what usually happens is that it assumes that the top management knows the best, right? Because they can see the big picture. That is the assumption under which this form of traditional goal settings takes place. And what happened again is the fact that these goals are intended to direct and guide, and also they therefore constrain from above, and therefore goals then lose clarity because it focuses on lower level managers within the organization itself as attempt to, because these lower level managers are trying to interpret and then define the goals and try to see what sort of things it means for them and how they can contribute, and sometimes in the process it loses the meaning within the organization itself. And so that is what leads to the idea of, because of that criticism, that's what leads to the idea of management by objectives. The idea of management by objectives. So by management by objectives, so you're looking at specific performance goals jointly determined by employees and managers. So instead of top echelons within the organization defining the goals for the organizations, so what is now necessary is that managers within the organization jointly determine the goals, the specific goals, performance goal for the organization, with everyone within the organization. Most employees contribute to what they want to see, what they want to achieve, and therefore what that does is that it can help to progress to accomplish the goal in a periodic manner, and it can be easily reviewed by everyone involved in the process. And then reward are then allocated on the basis of progress towards that particular goal. And one of the key elements of MBO, which is management by objectives, is that of goal specificity, where you're looking at issues relating to the goals are being specific and very participative decision making within the organization itself, um, and the essence in which performance are very explicit and then feedback is there, and every aspect of everything that the organization needed to do, managers can are very clear in terms of what they need to do. So this is an interesting stuff because it get a sense of everyone is being carried along within the organization itself. So every employees are being carried along within the organization itself, and this is the aspect that I advocate. This is the aspect that I enjoy more, even as a manager within the academics set. So I advocate management by objectives, where every employees have their voice in the process, where and therefore there's that sense of ownership, sense of responsibility in the process. Now, so the idea of management by objective, when you're looking at the framework itself, is that it starts with setting the goals will be in step one. So in that regard, so you look, it could be corporate goals, it could be tactical goals, it could be very operational goals, and of course that leads to managers having an action plans in place, and this is jointly determined by everyone, and then you can review the progress that have been made. And of course, if there are any deviations, what happens is you provide a corrective actions here, and you can come back to the plan and reshape it, unlike what used to happen before, which is more like a cycle. But now there is opportunity for corrections because people, every staff within the organizations are making input. And of course, the issue of appraising the overall performance of the effort that have been put in place to see whether the goals have been achieved. And so that's the process in management by objective. But the typical steps in management by objective programs more like organizations have an overall objective or strategies, which are usually formulated by managers, top managers within the organizations, and these objectives are actually allocated among divisional and departmental units within the organization itself. And therefore, once that is done, unit managers will work collaboratively and set specific objective for their unit with the managers, with the top managers or unit managers within that particular functional area. And the next step is to then try to be specify the objectives, to state clearly in a collaborative manner with every members of that particular department what they are trying to achieve. Therefore, that promote a sense of unity, that promote a sense of ownership, that promote a sense of responsibility, that gives every members within the organization something to hold on to say we have a say, we have a voice in this organization. And once that is done, in the move to where you have action plan. So action plan, by now you already know what plan means. So by action plan, so you're defining how the objectives that have been set, how they'll be achieved, and they needed to be agreed upon. And of course, you're thinking about how you implement them as managers within the organization itself as well. So these are really key areas that managers are really looking forward to within a typical management by objective program. And what happens is that you need that periodic review. And of course, for it to be successful, you want to make sure that you have a performance-based reward systems in place for it to be successful within the organization itself. So that being said, so without much ado, I'm just going to summarize what I've said so far. So we look at applying the concept of management by objective. So one of the things that I've looked at is that the area of the goals to be specific, to be difficult goals, in other words, to help you to motivate employees. And normally companies use that in multiple. Some organizations that have managers in multiple locations use management by objective, and of course knowledge based companies are also use management by objective. And most managers, top echelons, upper echelons within organizations that believe in self leadership also use management by objective as a framework when they're setting goals and plans for their organizations. And it really works best. So this thing works best when you have monetary bonus formulas abolished, but you give individual performances assessed as part of a one-on-one appraisal evaluation system. And so these are really key area where goal settings you will find it really useful. Even when you look at if it is not used on its own as a direct bonus kicker, so it shouldn't be used on its own as a direct bonus kicker. But one of the things that I want to mention is the fact that it should qualify the employee for the bonus. So it should qualify the employee for the bonus. So that being said, that it needed to qualify the employee for the bonus, and we can start to imagine and start to see what next, what and so what. So we're looking at how it works. It's trying to define the process, how it works. That's what I was trying to explain to you, and the type of organization that use that. So one of the reasons for the success of management by objective, which is the MPO, is the level of top management commitment and involvement in the process. But there are some potential problems that have been highlighted in the literature that I should bring to your attention, and one of it is the um, it could maybe sometimes is the issue of not being as effective in dynamic environment because it requires constant resetting of goals. And as you imagine, the business environment is fluid, it's constantly changing. And so there is the overemphasis on individual accomplishments, which may create a problem with teamwork. So that's another issue, problems with these particular ways of setting goals. But at the same time, it's also allowing the MBA to become an annual paperwork, which sometimes is not what you really want to do. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that if you don't, you shouldn't plan, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't plan. So, but these are some of the potential downside. But of course, there is the issue of some of it is the issue of the fact that it may promote rigidity within the organization. They'll say, "Oh, this is the way we plan to do it. This is the way we want to do it. This is how we've been doing it. This is what we figure out to do." So it shouldn't devalue or it shouldn't be something that should devalue the room for flexibility within the organization and promote innovation and creativity in the organization. So these are some of the areas that have been put across and say, you know what, let's look at it in this other aspect as well. The fact that formal plans cannot replace creativity and intuition within organization, and the fact that it's planning also trying to focus managers' attentions on today's competitions instead of tomorrow's survivor. So managers sometimes lose sight of business continuity, and that's not a good thing. So we'll be looking at business continuity and the aspect of resilience within organizations when we'll look at our other lectures around that particular topic. But it reinforces today's success, and that can lead to tomorrow failures if care is not taken. So, but just planning isn't enough in itself. It needs to be actionable plan. It can put it in a shelf without execution. It's just a wishful thinking, and that is not going to help anybody within the organization itself. That being said, so when you look at some of the continue potential downside of planning development leveling against effective planning in dynamic environments is something that has also been raised as a possible concerns, and that relates to the fact that you develop plans that are specific but is not flexible. So I've mentioned this over that as individuals, as managers within organizations, when you pull up a plan, the fact that it's specific is not enough. Also think about flexibility of the plan itself, and as well as trying to understand that planning is an ongoing process. It's not a one-off exercise, and change plans when conditions warrant. These are truly important stuff that naturally happens, but most organizations have a static plan, and that's where it becomes very problematic, very controversial. That you could have a plan in place, but the events for which you're planning for could still happen as if you don't really have a plan on how to deal with that particular event, because the plan have not take into consideration the issue of change that is happening within the business environment. And of course, the fact that sometimes it can foster creativities, right, within the organization and innovations, because organizations have constrained a lot of resources to deal with, and therefore this can happen. So without much ado, I'm just going to wrap up these particular sections and try to see what is coming up next week. Next week, we're looking at, in the next lectures, we'll be looking at organizations in crisis. In other words, we're looking at crisis, we'll be looking at managing crisis, and what that entails for organizations. When organizations are in crisis, what are some of the things do we understand by the nature of crisis and how crisis actually matters? So that will be the focus of my concentrations when I'm preparing the next lecture for you. And I want to encourage you to tune in as well when you look at that. One of the things that one of the key takeaway for me in because of this lecture is for you to start planning for your assignment. Start working on your assignment. Remember, today we'll look at plan. So check some insights
from week 1 to week 3 on around planning around business trend and crisis. So we look at planning today. So it would be good to start to think about it, right? Think about what you might do. So that's the thing that you need to consider. Just start to think, merely trying to understand the questions as well. So that's that being said. So finally, I just want to encourage some of you that haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. I'll be posting commentary of your case analysis of the seminars and other things, which is also going to be available on your Black Bubble. I'll be posting extra resources and materials on there on the channel. If you haven't subscribed, I will encourage you to do so because I promise you will find it useful. And the comment I've already received messages for a very large number of you. I really want to appreciate some of those comments and just thank you for tuning in. And also, finally, encourage you to engage with it with your lectures and the seminars, the live seminars. And if you have any questions, just drop me an email or contact your seminar tutor, and that will be it. That will be the end of the lectures for today. And I will speak to you on organizations in crisis in the next pre-recorded lecture. So thank you very much, and I wish you the very best of luck.